It was a Tuesday afternoon in South Falls, and I, Madison Adams, 32, watched my life turn to ash. The kitchen sparked faulty stove wiring, they later said, and flames swallowed our apartment. I grabbed my kids, 7 and 4, and ran, their small hands clutching mine as we stumbled into the parking lot. My heart pounded, but we were safe, barely. With nothing but the clothes on our backs, I pulled out my phone and texted the family group chat. The kids and I are safe, but we have nowhere to go. I waited, staring at the screen, expecting a flood of replies. Nothing. Silence. An hour later, my sister's post popped up on my feed. A backyard barbecue. All smiles, captioned, "Family only." My parents were there, laughing, clinking glasses with her friend. My stomach twisted. They saw my text. They chose to ignore it. Weeks later, when they finally called, it wasn't to help. It was to demand something from me. Something big. I stared at their messages, my kids' faces flashing in my mind, and typed back, only accepting calls from people I know. Have you ever felt abandoned by the people you trusted most? Tell me in the comments. I'm here to listen. 3 days later, we were squeezed onto Martha's pull-out couch. The springs dug into my back, but I barely noticed. My mind was elsewhere. My kids, Charlotte and Owen, were curled up beside me, their small bodies pressed against mine in the cramped space. Martha, my best friend since college, had opened her tiny Sioux Falls apartment to us without hesitation. Her couch was our lifeline, but it wasn't home. I kept my phone close, hoping for a message from the family group chat. Nothing. Not a single word since I'd texted that we were safe, but homeless. I refreshed the app, thinking maybe I'd missed something. Just silence. Charlotte stirred beside me, her 7-year-old voice soft. "Mommy, is this our new home?" Her question sliced through me. I forced a smile, stroking her hair. "No, sweetie, it's just for now. We'll find a place soon." Owen, only 4, clutched his stuffed dinosaur, oblivious to the weight of her words. I couldn't tell them the truth, that we had nowhere else to go, that their grandparents and aunt had turned their backs on us. My mind drifted to the past. I'd always been the one to step up for my family. When my sister needed money for college, I worked overtime at my retail job to cover her tuition, $6,000 over 2 years. When her car broke down, I paid the $2,000 repair bill without a second thought. I'd done it because that's what family does, or so I thought. Now, seeing them laugh in that photo, I felt like a fool. They hadn't even checked on us. Not a call, not a text, nothing. I scrolled through the comments on the post. "Looks like a blast," one said. "Love the shirts," another chimed in. My sister's friend had even tagged Mom, gushing about how tight-knit they were. Tight-knit, I wanted to scream. Where were they when my kids were sleeping on a borrowed couch? Where were they when our clothes, our toys, our whole life went up in flames? I slammed my phone down, my hands shaking. Martha glanced over from her kitchen, her eyes soft with concern. "You okay, Madison?" she asked, setting down a mug of coffee. I shook my head. "They're out there partying while we're here, Martha." "Partying?" She sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You don't deserve this," she said quietly. I nodded, but the anger burned hotter. My kids deserved better. Charlotte deserved a bed, not a lumpy couch. Owen deserved to feel safe, not to cling to a toy for comfort. I looked at their sleeping faces, and a knot formed in my throat. I'd given everything to my family, money, time, trust, and they'd left us in the dust. That night, I couldn't sleep. The barbecue photo played on a loop in my head, those t-shirts, that caption, "Family only." The words mocked me. I thought about every sacrifice I'd made, every late shift I'd taken to bail them out. I'd paid for my sister's life while mine was falling apart, and now, when I needed them most, they were toasting to their perfect little world without us. I picked up my phone again, staring at the group chat. Still nothing. The betrayal settled into my bones, heavy and cold. I wasn't just angry. I was done. Done hoping they'd care. Done believing they'd change. My kids were my family now, and I'd fight for them no matter what came next. 2 weeks in, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. I was on Martha's couch, watching Charlotte color a unicorn at the coffee table, Owen napping, with his dinosaur tucked under his chin. Mom's name lit up the screen, and for a fleeting moment, I hoped she'd ask how we were coping. I opened the message. Madison, we need $4,000 for something important. Can you send it by Friday? No mention of the fire, no concern for my kids. Just a cold demand that hit like a slap. I stared at the words, my fingers frozen over the keyboard, unable to respond. Charlotte looked up, her 7-year-old smile bright. Mommy, can we get a dog when we have a house again? She asked, holding her crayon. I forced a grin, my chest tight. Maybe, sweetie, I said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. But Mom's text nodded at me. $4,000 for what? After 2 weeks of silence, this was their first move. That night, my phone rang. Dad's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, then picked up. Madison, he said, his voice gruff, almost impatient. We need that money. It's for the family. You know, we've always stuck together. I clenched the phone, my jaw tight. What's it for, Dad? I asked, keeping my tone even. He sighed, then muttered, It's important, okay? You've helped us before. Don't back out now. Not one word about Charlotte or Owen. Nothing about our burned-out apartment or sleeping on a borrowed couch. Just pressure, like I owed them. I ended the call without a word, my hands trembling. I sank back, staring at the ceiling as anger simmered. Martha, stirring soup in the kitchen, glanced over. Everything okay? She asked, her brow furrowed. I showed her Mom's text. She read it, her lips pressing into a thin line. She shook her head. They didn't even ask about you guys, she said, her voice heavy with disbelief. I nodded, too furious to speak. My kids were sleeping in a cramped corner, and all they cared about was my wallet. The next morning, I got a call from Lisa, an old coworker from my retail days. She mentioned hearing about Dad's hardware store in Sioux Falls struggling. Word is Raymond's got some bad loans piling up, she said, unaware of the weight her words carried. I froze, the pieces clicking. That was their important thing. Dad's failing business. They wanted me to cough up $4,000 to save a store while my kids had no home. The nerve made my pulse race. I thought back to all the times I'd bailed them out. I'd paid $6,000 for my sister's college tuition, working extra shifts to cover it. I'd shelled out $2,000 for her car repairs, no questions asked. And last year, when Mom and Dad fell behind on their rent, I'd sent $3,000, dipping into my savings. I'd done it because I thought family came first. Now I saw the truth. They only reached out when they needed cash. My kids and I were just a resource to tap. Charlotte climbed onto the couch, waving her unicorn drawing. Mommy, it's for you, she said, her eyes sparkling. I pulled her into a hug, her warmth steadying me. Owen mumbled in his sleep, his dinosaur slipping to the floor. I picked it up, tucking it beside him. My kids were my everything, and I'd shield them from this betrayal. Mom's text, Dad's call, their talk of family. It was all hollow. I was done being their ATM. I glanced at my phone, Mom's message still glowing on the screen. I didn't reply. Instead, I powered it off and set it aside. I kissed Charlotte's forehead, pointing at her drawing. That's amazing, sweetie, I said, her smile easing the storm inside me. I wasn't just mad. I was resolute. My kids deserved a mother who put them first, not a family who only showed up to take. I'd build a future for us, no matter the cost. By week 3, I was buried in paperwork for emergency housing. My days were a blur of retail shifts and filling out forms at the Sioux Falls Public Library, my laptop balanced on a wobbly table. Charlotte and Owen tagged along, coloring in the kids section while I wrestled with applications for housing aid. My boss had cut my hours, saying the store was overstaffed, so I was scraping by on less than 30 hours a week. Every rejection letter from the housing office felt like a door slamming shut. I kept my head down, determined to find a place for my kids. But the stress was a weight I couldn't shake. One morning, Martha rushed into her apartment, her face pale. Madison, you need to see this, she said, shoving her phone at me. It was a local Sioux Falls parenting group on social media, and there, under an anonymous profile, was a post by my sister's friend, Evelyn. Single mom, recently homeless, neglecting her kids. It read with just enough details, 2 kids, ages 7 and 4, apartment fire, to point straight at me. My stomach dropped. Comments piled up. Strangers calling me irresponsible and unfit. Evelyn had painted me as a failure, and people were eating it up. I gripped the phone, my hands trembling. How could she do this? That afternoon, a letter arrived at Martha's apartment, addressed to me in Mom's neat handwriting. I tore it open, my heart racing. Madison, it began. Your instability is concerning. We're worried about the children's safety and are prepared to contact Child Protective Services if you can't prove you're a fit parent. My breath caught. Mom was threatening to have Charlotte and Owen taken away. I read it again, the words blurring through tears. She claimed I was unstable, citing my failure to find housing and Evelyn's reports of neglect. I slammed the letter down, my chest heaving. My kids were my world. How dare she question my ability to care for them? I paced Martha's living room, Charlotte and Owen playing nearby, unaware of the storm brewing. I couldn't let this stand. That night, after tucking the kids into bed, I opened my laptop and found a Reddit forum for single moms. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I poured out my anger in an anonymous post about a family that abandoned me after a fire, partied while I struggled, and now threatened my kids. I didn't name Mom, Dad, or my sister, but the truth burned through every word. Their betrayal, their selfishness, their lies. I hit post and shut the laptop, my heart pounding. It felt like a release, like I'd finally screamed after holding my breath for weeks. The next day, I called Alice Cooper, a lawyer recommended by a coworker. I'd never needed legal help before, but Mom's threat changed everything. I met Alice at her small office downtown, her desk cluttered with files. I need to protect my kids, I told her, handing over Mom's letter. Alice read it, her brow furrowing. This is serious, she said, her voice calm but firm. Threatening CPS without evidence is intimidation. We can start building a case to counter this. Document everything. I nodded, relief mixing with fear. I pulled out my phone, showing her screenshots of Evelyn's post and the comments. Alice jotted notes, her pen moving fast. We'll draft a cease and desist letter, she said. It's a first step to stop their harassment. Back at Martha's, I sat with Charlotte, helping her with a puzzle. Mommy, why do you look sad? She asked, her small hand on mine. I forced a smile, my throat tight. Just tired, sweetie, I lied, kissing her forehead. Owen toddled over, holding his dinosaur. Roar, he giggled, and I hugged him close, their warmth anchoring me. Mom's letter. Evelyn's lies. They were attacks on my family, but I wasn't helpless. I'd fight back, not with anger, but with action. Alice's words echoed in my mind. Document everything. I started saving every text, every post, every piece of evidence. My kids deserved a safe home, and no one, not Mom, not Evelyn, would take that from us. I looked at my laptop, the Reddit tab still open. My post had a few upvotes, comments from other moms offering support. It wasn't much, but it was something, a reminder I wasn't alone. I closed the screen, my resolve hardening. Mom thought she could scare me into submission, but she was wrong. I wasn't the daughter she could bully anymore. I was a mother fighting for Charlotte and Owen, and I'd do whatever it took to keep them safe. One morning, Martha handed me her phone with a worried look. I was helping Charlotte with her math homework at the kitchen table, Owen scribbling nearby with crayons. The screen showed an email from Charlotte's school addressed to me. My heart sank as I read it. We received a call from a woman claiming to be your mother, requesting information about your daughter's attendance and well-being. As per policy, we did not disclose any details. Mom had gone behind my back, contacting Charlotte's school to dig into our lives. I set the phone down, my hands shaking. She wasn't just threatening CPS, she was acting on it. I called the school immediately, my voice tight. The secretary confirmed Mom had pressed for details about Charlotte's grades and behavior, claiming she was concerned about my parenting. The school had shut her down, citing privacy laws, but the violation stung. I thanked the secretary and hung up, my mind racing. Mom thought she could meddle in my kids' lives after ignoring us for weeks. I glanced at Charlotte, who was chewing her pencil, unaware of the intrusion. I wouldn't let Mom's tactics touch her. Later that day, I checked my Reddit account, needing a distraction. My anonymous post from last week had exploded. Hundreds of upvotes, dozens of comments from single moms sharing their own stories of betrayal. "You're not alone," one wrote. "Your family doesn't deserve you," said another. Someone had shared it to a larger parenting forum, and it was spreading fast. My words about a family that partied while I struggled were resonating, and strangers were rallying behind me. I stared at the screen, a mix of pride and dread washing over me. I hadn't named Mom, Dad, or my sister, but the truth was out there, gaining traction. By evening, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "What did you do?" it read, her words dripping with panic. "People are talking about your stupid post, and it's ruining my reputation at work." Sylvia worked as a marketing consultant in Sioux Falls, and her firm was all about image. Apparently, colleagues had seen the Reddit post and started whispering. Someone had connected the dots to our family. I didn't respond, my jaw clenched. Sylvia hadn't cared when we were homeless, but now she was worried about her job. The irony made my blood boil. I called Alice Cooper, my lawyer, and told her about Mom's call to the school. "That's escalation," Alice said, her tone sharp. "It's another attempt to control you." I met her at her office the next day, bringing every piece of evidence I had: Mom's text demanding $4,000, Dad's follow-up call, the letter threatening CPS, screenshots of the barbecue post with family-only t-shirts, and now the school's email. Alice spread them across her desk, her eyes narrowing. "We can file for a no-contact order," she said. "This shows a pattern of harassment, demanding money, spreading rumors, contacting the school. It's enough to start." I handed her my phone, showing the Reddit post's traction. "This might come up," I said, nervous. Alice scanned it, her expression unreadable. "It's anonymous, and you didn't name them," she said. "Legally, you're clear, but it's stirring things up. Be prepared for pushback." I nodded, my stomach twisting. The post was my truth, but I hadn't expected it to spread like wildfire. Still, I didn't regret it. It was my way of fighting back without breaking. Back at Martha's, I sat with Owen, helping him stack blocks. "Look, Mommy, a tower," he said, his 4-year-old grin lighting up the room. I ruffled his hair, forcing a smile. Charlotte joined us, dragging her unicorn plush. "Can we play school?" she asked. I nodded, my heart heavy but warm. Their joy kept me grounded, even as Mom's actions and Sylvia's panic loomed. I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for them. Alice called later, confirming she had drafted the no-contact order. "We're citing harassment and unauthorized contact with the school," she said. "You'll need to sign the paperwork tomorrow." I agreed, relief mixing with resolve. I saved the school's email and Sylvia's text, adding them to my evidence folder. Every move Mom made, every word from Sylvia, was another nail in their coffin. They thought they could intimidate me, but I was building a wall to protect my kids. As I tucked Charlotte and Owen into bed, I looked at their peaceful faces. The Reddit post was still gaining comments, voices of support pouring in. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about standing up to a family that saw us as disposable. I kissed my kids goodnight, my determination solidifying. Mom and Sylvia could push all they wanted, but I was ready to push back harder. A month after the fire, a certified letter arrived from a lawyer. The envelope bore a Sioux Falls law firm's logo, and my stomach twisted as I opened it. The letter claimed I defamed my family through my Reddit post, now viral with thousands of shares. Mom, Dad, and Sylvia were suing me for libel, demanding I retract the post and pay damages. My hands shook as I read their accusations, calling my truth malicious lies. They'd twisted my words to paint themselves as victims. I called Alice Cooper immediately, my voice tight. "They're suing me," I said, handing her the letter at her office later that day. Alice scanned it, her lips pursed. "This is weak," she said, tossing it onto her desk. "They have no proof you named them. Your post was anonymous. We'll countersue for harassment and unlawful interference." She leaned forward, her eyes steady. "We use their own actions against them. The money demands, the CPS threat, the school call." I nodded, my fear giving way to resolve. I wasn't backing down. Alice and I filed a countersuit the next day, citing harassment from Mom's texts and letter, Dad's call, and their attempt to access Charlotte's school records. I handed over every piece of evidence, screenshots of the family-only barbecue post, Mom's demand for $4,000, her CPS threat, and the school's email. Alice added Sylvia's text about her reputation, calling it evidence of their motive to silence me. "This shows a pattern," she said. her pen flying across her notepad. "They're trying to intimidate you, but they've overplayed their hand." I found an old bank statement buried in my email, proof I'd paid off $1,500 of Sylvia's credit card debt 3 years ago. I'd done it to help her avoid collections, no questions asked. Now, I sent her a scanned copy with a single line. "You owe me, not the other way around." Sylvia didn't reply, but I knew she'd seen it. Her silence felt like a small victory, a crack in her polished facade. I imagined her squirming, her perfect image tarnished by the truth spreading online. Weeks later, we faced their lawyer in a Sioux Falls courthouse. Mom, Dad, and Sylvia sat across from me, their faces stony. Their lawyer argued my Reddit post had irreparably harmed their reputation, but Alice dismantled their case. "My client never named the plaintiffs," she said, her voice sharp. "The post is anonymous, and their own actions documented here match the described behavior." She presented our evidence, each piece landing like a hammer: the barbecue post, the money demands, the CPS letter. Their lawyer fumbled, unable to prove I'd identified them. The judge dismissed their case for lack of evidence, his gavel a sharp echo in the quiet room. I walked out of the courthouse, my legs unsteady but my heart lighter. Alice squeezed my shoulder. "They've got nothing left," she said. "The no-contact order is holding, and your countersuit is moving forward." I thanked her, my voice catching. For the first time in weeks, I felt in control. Mom and Dad's betrayal, Sylvia's panic. They'd tried to break me, but their lies had crumbled instead. Back at Martha's, I sat with Charlotte and Owen, watching them build a block tower. "Higher, Mommy," Owen giggled, stacking a red block. Charlotte grinned, adding a blue one. Their laughter filled the room, a reminder of why I was fighting. I'd given my family everything: money, trust, loyalty, and they'd thrown it back in my face. Now I was done. No more texts, no more letters, no more chances. I blocked Mom, Dad, and Sylvia's numbers, my fingers steady as I hit confirm. They weren't my family anymore. Charlotte and Owen were. That night, I checked Reddit one last time. My post had faded from the spotlight, but the support lingered. Comments from strangers who'd faced similar betrayals. I didn't need their validation anymore. I'd stood up to my family, faced their lawsuit, and won. I closed my laptop, a quiet strength settling in my chest. My kids deserved a mother who fought for them, and I'd proven I could. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it, free from the weight of their lies. 2 weeks later, their lawsuit collapsed without a sound. For years, I'd been sending Mom and Dad $300 a month to help with their mortgage, a promise I'd kept even when money was tight. No more. I canceled the automatic transfer, my heart pounding with defiance. That money wasn't theirs to claim. It belonged to my kids' future. I opened a new savings account for Charlotte and Owen, depositing the first $300. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a commitment to them alone. The next day, I signed a lease for a small apartment in Sioux Falls. It wasn't fancy, 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and creaky floors, but it was ours. I stood in the empty living room, imagining Charlotte and Owen running through it, free from borrowed couches. Martha helped me move our few belongings, her pickup truck packed with clothes and toys. "This place is perfect," she said, grinning as she carried a box of Owen's dinosaurs. I nodded, a spark of hope flickering. For the first time since the fire, I saw a path forward. We spent the weekend painting the kids' rooms. Charlotte perched on a stool, picked a soft blue for her walls. "It's like the sky, Mommy," she said, dipping her brush with care. Owen, clutching his dinosaur, begged for Spider-Man curtains to match his red blanket. I laughed, ruffling his hair. "Spider-Man it is," I promised, picturing his grin when they arrived. The smell of fresh paint filled the air, each stroke erasing the weight of the past weeks. I wasn't just painting walls, I was building a home. Charlotte helped me roll paint, her small hands steady. "Will we stay here forever?" she asked, her eyes wide. I knelt beside her, brushing a smudge of blue from her cheek. "As long as we need to, sweetie," I said, my voice soft. Owen toddled over, waving his toy. "Spider-Man saves the day," he shouted, and I pulled them both into a hug. Their laughter was a balm, soothing the scars left by Mom, Dad, and Sylvia's betrayal. This apartment, these moments, they were ours, untouchable. That evening, I sat on the floor, surrounded by paint cans, and called my phone carrier. I'd been putting it off, but it was time. I changed my number, cutting the last thread tying me to my family. No more texts from Mom demanding money. No calls from Dad pressuring me. No messages from Sylvia whining about her reputation. I saved Martha's number, Alice's, and a few coworkers, but the rest were gone. My phone felt lighter, like I'd shed a heavy coat. I leaned back, staring at the freshly painted walls, and felt a quiet freedom. The savings account grew slowly. I added another $100 from my next paycheck, every cent a step toward stability. I pictured Charlotte in college, Owen chasing his dreams. Maybe art, maybe dinosaurs. That money was their future, not a handout for a family who'd abandoned us. I thought of Mom and Dad's mortgage, Sylvia's credit card debt, all the times I'd sacrificed for them. They'd taken enough. Now every dollar I saved was a brick in the foundation I was building for my kids. Martha stopped by with pizza, her way of celebrating our new start. We sat on the floor, the kids giggling as cheese dripped onto their plates. "You're doing it, Madison," Martha said, her eyes warm. "You're making a home." I smiled, my throat tight. She'd been my rock, and now I was standing on my own. I looked at Charlotte, who was drawing a unicorn on a napkin, and Owen, who was making his dinosaur eat a pepperoni. This was my family, and I'd fight to keep it safe. As I tucked the kids into their new beds, Charlotte whispered, "I like our new house, Mommy." Owen, clutching his dinosaur, mumbled, "Spider-Man's coming." I kissed their foreheads, my heart full. The apartment wasn't perfect, but it was ours. I'd canceled the payments, changed my number, and left my family behind. They tried to break me, but I was stronger than they knew. I turned off the light, the blue walls glowing faintly in the dark. This was our beginning, and I'd make sure it lasted. 8 months later, our new apartment was home. Charlotte's blue walls glowed with her unicorn drawings, and Owen's Spider-Man curtains fluttered in the breeze. I'd hung a small shelf for their toys, and the kitchen table was covered with their art projects. After work, I'd find them sprawled on the living room rug, giggling over a board game. The warmth of those moments wrapped around me like a blanket, a stark contrast to the chaos we'd left behind. For the first time in months, I felt safe, like we'd carved out a space no one could touch. Word trickled in about Sylvia through a mutual friend. Her marketing firm had let her go, citing reputational concerns after my Reddit post's fallout. Whispers about her family's behavior, demanding money, threatening CPS, meddling with Charlotte's school, had spread through Sioux Falls' tight-knit circles. Sylvia's polished image had cracked, and she couldn't outrun the truth. I didn't feel joy at her loss, just a quiet acknowledgement that actions had consequences. She'd chosen her side, and it wasn't mine. One afternoon, Sylvia's husband showed up at my workplace, a retail store downtown. He stood awkwardly by the checkout, his hands in his pockets. "Madison, I know things got bad," he said, his voice low. "The family was wrong to treat you like that." His eyes searched mine, waiting for a response. I kept my gaze steady, my hands folding a stack of shirts. I appreciated his words, but they changed nothing. I nodded once, then turned back to my work. He left without another word, and I felt no urge to call him back. My family was here, in the laughter of Charlotte and Owen, not in apologies too late to matter. Mom and Dad faced their own fallout. Without my monthly payments, their finances crumbled, and friends distanced themselves after hearing about their actions. Evelyn, too, caught flack for spreading lies online, her credibility shot in local parenting groups. I learned this from Martha, who'd heard it through the grapevine. I didn't seek them out or gloat. I was too busy building our life. My savings account for the kids grew steadily, each deposit a promise for their future. I worked extra shifts, skipping lunches to save more, determined to give them stability. One evening, as I tucked Charlotte and Owen into bed, Charlotte hugged her unicorn. "This is the best home ever, Mommy," she said, her voice sleepy. Owen, clutching his dinosaur, nodded. "Spider-Man likes it too." I smiled, my heart full. Their happiness was my anchor, proof I'd done right by them. I'd lost the family I was born into, but I'd found a truer one in my kids and friends like Martha. Family wasn't blood. It was the people who stood by you when the world fell apart. I'd learned to stand on my own, to protect what mattered most. Self-reliance wasn't just survival. It was the shield I'd built for Charlotte, Owen, and me, unbreakable by those who'd tried to tear us down.